Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 5 of the anime series, Akuma no Riddle. And this is actually a pretty entertaining episode, I have to say, where we're seeing the next in the line of Class Black's assassins, Haruki, trying to take out Haru in this episode. And I love that, setting up the background for the coming episodes. Essentially, the teacher of Class Black, the sensei, wants to put on a play, Romeo and Juliet specifically, as a festival celebration is coming up for the school's founding and all this stuff. And it's kind of comical seeing how none of these assassin girls really wants to partake in creating costumes, sewing them together, or putting up sets and, that kind of thing. But it's interesting also the backgrounds we're getting with Takaku's family in particular, the Azuma clan. We're seeing in flashbacks somewhat contradictory things to what she's actually telling people, as far as the fact that she says her mother died in childbirth, and we have at least 2 flashbacks between a couple of different episodes that show us her mother taking her as a child to a shrine to sort of stay her killer instinct as a child, as well as seemingly telling her, she can stop training to become an assassin, they can spirit away, and I guess the grandmother or some such coming along and saying, that's nonsense, you're being disrespectful to the clan, she's kind of being treated as an outcast and this kind of thing, and frowned upon, and it's very intriguing that. So it's not quite adding up what Takaku's history is per what she's telling people. And of course, Haru is very understandably intrigued, as well as some of the other girls. In this particular case, Haruki wants to put her to the test because she doesn't see that much prowess being exuded from Takaku at the moment. She figures the greatest test of her experience and whether she is actually a solid combatant would be to try to make a move on Haru. So as it is in this episode, it's Haruki who gives Haru the 48-hour warning that I'm going to kill you and everything like that. And we find out very interestingly, sort of similarly to Takaku's family, extended family, that Haruki's doing this for a personal reason, and that is she has a very large family of many siblings who are impoverished, and it's her sort of ultimate goal in taking Haru's life and hopefully having a wish granted her, that her family will want for nothing, especially in her absence. This is where it becomes very intriguing, because she most notably, goes to Neo and asks her, will my family still reap the benefits of my success in taking Haru's life, even if I end up being killed as well? So she's basically thinking of sort of self-sacrifice, setting up this plan of action, this trap to hopefully catch Haru, and if possible, Takaku as well, which all falls into play with the surrounding, the setup of this play that they're going to be putting on. Of course, the auditorium is what comes heavily into play where the play would be held if all went to plan, and this is where Haruki makes her move. She kind of tricks Takaku into meeting her somewhere else and tries to corner Haru. We've seen this time and again, all of these assassins are really not up to par with keeping Takaku away. She's too smart for that. She can observe the bigger picture and know that something is going to happen, and she comes right in the nick of time once Haruki had actually pulled this sort of thin chain out from her gloves to choke the life out of Haru, and Takaku effectively stops this from happening, but she does have a backup plan, and this is where it gets interesting. This is where that self-sacrifice comes into play. Part of this chain link that she has is attached to a rung of the ceiling, which is going to pull the entire thing down. All the lights and the ironworks holding it up are going to come crashing down and crush them all to death, which is Haruki's plan. This is why she asked that question, if I die too, will my family still be taken care of? Because she didn't think she'd get out of this alive. And at this point, she has this kind of, per her dialogue between Haru and as well as herself, we see that she's got this concept of death being a freedom of sorts, something that will allay any more of the burdens of life that she has. But in the end, of course, as we see, even though the ceiling comes crashing down on top of them, none of them are actually mortally wounded. None of them die. Haruki does, for all intents and purposes, fail, but she will probably, hopefully, be returning to her family and maybe have another go at helping them in some other, manner. At least that is the hope. We still don't know yet what happens to these girls when they do fail. For all we know, they could be punished with death themselves. But it's really interesting to me that we had parallels between the histories of Takaku and Haruki, with their families. You know, they both have this sort of burden overhanging them to do with their families, and one wants to try to escape that while the other one is trying to preserve that in her own sort of unique way. And I love that. I love the setup of this story and how all these background aspects are coming into play. And I do have to note that whereas I felt the last episode was really trying to overly play the assassin of the day, Kaminaga, as a very sympathetic character, I almost felt like for its subtlety in this episode, Haruki was much more of somebody I was sympathetic toward, because she was really trying to help her family, who are impoverished, suffering probably. You know, they have a small shack they live in, probably not a lot of food, and it's havoc, as we see when her sister tries to call her and everything like that. So it's a real-world dilemma for her, whereas Kaminaga was just sort of, you know, self-wallowing and everything like that. People didn't treat her as a good assassin, and she felt bad about that. Yeah, you know, that kind of sucks, but she was killing people, and even though Haruki's goal was ultimately the same, we haven't seen that she has killed before, and again, she's trying to benefit her family, her siblings, who she cares very much about. So I just felt that overall, she was a much more sympathetic character this time out. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. Otherwise, that'll be it for me on this. I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.